November 1943, Washington, D.C. The Research and Development Branch of the Office of Strategic Services faced an unusual problem. Resistance fighters across occupied Europe needed time-delay incendiary devices, devices simple enough for untrained civilians to use, devices innocent enough to avoid detection during German searches, devices that would give the saboteur hours to leave before the fire started. Stanley Lovell, head of OSS Research and Development, examined the proposals on his desk. Time pencils, chemical fuses, mechanical timers, all effective, all detectable, all suspicious if found during a search. What the resistance needed was something so ordinary that German guards would never question it. Something that belonged in warehouses and offices, something people used every day. Someone suggested a candle. The concept was elegant. A candle burns at a predictable rate. Different lengths provide different delay times. The flame moves steadily downward until it reaches whatever lies beneath. If that material ignites, the candle becomes a time bomb. The saboteur lights it, walks away. Hours later, fire. The OSS developed what became known as exploding candles. The exact specifications remain classified or lost to history. Production records were destroyed. Technical drawings have not surfaced. What survives are brief mentions in OSS documentation and references in post-war accounts. The research and development summary lists exploding candles among devices ranging from limpet mines to explosive flour. But the details, the precise construction, the deployment numbers, these remain unknown. What can be documented is the theory behind the device. Standard candles burn at consistent rates. A candle roughly 1 inch in diameter burns approximately 1 inch per hour. This varies with wax composition, wick size, and ambient temperature, but the variation is predictable. A 6-inch candle provides roughly 6 hours of delay. An 8-inch candle provides 8 hours. The saboteur selects the length based on how much time is needed. The challenge was what happened when the flame reached the bottom. A simple candle burning down to a desk creates no damage. The flame extinguishes. The wax pools. Nothing ignites. For the device to work as a weapon, something had to happen at the moment the candle burned out. Something that created intense heat. Something that ignited surrounding materials with certainty. This is where documentation becomes uncertain. Post-war accounts mention incendiary cores. Some references suggest thermite, a mixture of aluminum powder and iron oxide that burns at temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius. Thermite was widely used in World War II incendiary devices. It burns through steel. It ignites nearly anything combustible. It cannot be extinguished with water. A thermite core hidden inside a candle would create a devastating ignition source. But whether OSS actually used thermite in candles remains unverified. No technical manual has surfaced describing the construction. No surviving examples exist in museums. No declassified documents provide specifications. The references to exploding candles exist. The confirmation of their exact design does not. What is documented is the OSS approach to time delay sabotage. The Simple Sabotage Field Manual, declassified decades after the war, describes methods for ordinary citizens to disrupt German operations. The manual specifically addresses using candles for delayed fires. The instructions are straightforward. Place a candle near flammable material. Wrap paper around the base. Light the candle. When the flame reaches the paper ignites. The fire spreads to surrounding materials. This method required no special equipment, no explosive cores, no thermite, just an ordinary candle and ordinary paper. The manual emphasized simplicity. Citizen saboteurs were not trained agents. They were factory workers, janitors, clerks, people with access to warehouses and offices, but no access to specialized weapons. The question becomes whether the OSS developed specialized exploding candles beyond the simple paper method. Logic suggests they did. The Research and Development Branch existed specifically to create specialized sabotage devices. They developed explosive coal disguised as ordinary lumps. They created fountain pen pistols. They manufactured playing cards with hidden maps. Developing candles with incendiary cores would align with this pattern of concealing weapons in everyday objects. The tactical advantage would be significant. A resistance fighter entering a German supply warehouse might carry matches, might carry paper, might carry nothing suspicious at all if the candles were already in place. German warehouses used candles. Offices used candles. Anywhere without reliable electricity used candles. A candle sitting on a desk or shelf aroused no suspicion. The saboteur's task becomes remarkably simple. Light a candle. A German guard, seeing someone light a candle for illumination, would think nothing of it. Candles were lit constantly. In the winter of 1943 and 1944, as Allied bombing disrupted German power systems, candles became even more common. The perfect camouflage. If the candle contained an incendiary core, the saboteur needed only to ensure the candle would burn completely before anyone extinguished it. This required planning. Light the candle in an area that would be unattended for hours, near flammable storage, away from foot traffic, somewhere the flame could burn steadily downward until reaching the core. The timing calculations would be critical. Too short a delay, and the saboteur remained too close when the fire started. Too long a delay, and someone might extinguish the candle before it burned down. The saboteur needed to estimate how long until the area would be empty. How long until guards changed shifts? How long until the warehouse closed for the night? A 6-hour delay meant lighting the candle at 2 in the afternoon for an 8 at night ignition. An 8-hour delay meant lighting it at noon for an 8 at night result. The predictability of candle burn rates made the calculation reliable. More reliable than chemical fuses affected by temperature. More reliable than mechanical timers that could malfunction. The psychological impact would be substantial. German commanders investigating fires in warehouses would find no obvious sabotage, no bomb fragments, no chemical residue, just a burned candle among the ashes. Determining whether the fire was accidental or deliberate would be nearly impossible. A knocked-over candle looks identical to a sabotage candle. The uncertainty would be maddening. If the OSS distributed these devices widely, and the references suggest they did, the impact on German logistics could be significant. Warehouses burning, supply depots destroyed, record offices gutted, all from fires that appeared accidental, all started by candles that looked ordinary until the moment they ignited something extraordinary. The genius of the concept lay in its simplicity and its deniability. Even if a German guard caught someone lighting a candle, what crime had occurred? Lighting a candle was normal, expected, necessary for illumination. The guard might watch the person leave, might note their presence, but would have no reason to extinguish the candle. Why would they? It was just a candle. Hours later, when the fire started, connecting it to the person who lit a candle that afternoon would be difficult. Other people had been in the area. Other candles might have been burning. The fire could have started from any source. Proving sabotage beyond doubt became nearly impossible. This uncertainty was deliberate. The OSS understood psychological warfare. A fire that was obviously sabotage created one response: investigation, arrests, retaliation. A fire that might be accidental created different responses: confusion, uncertainty, paranoia. German commanders could not arrest every person who lit a candle, could not ban candles entirely when electricity was unreliable, could not prevent fires that appeared accidental. What remains frustrating for historical research is the gap between what the OSS developed and what can be documented. The organization operated under intense secrecy. Production records for many devices were destroyed after the war. Technical specifications were classified for decades. Some remain classified today. The full story of OSS sabotage weapons may never be completely known. The exploding candles represent this challenge. We know they existed. The documentation confirms development. But the details, the specifications, the deployment records, the effectiveness, these remain uncertain or unknown. How many were produced? The records do not say. Where were they used? No deployment logs have surfaced. How effective were they? No after-action reports document results. What can be stated with confidence is the OSS commitment to innovation in sabotage. The research and development branch developed hundreds of specialized devices. Some were sophisticated, some were simple. All were designed to give resistance fighters tools that looked innocent while being deadly. The candle concept fit this pattern perfectly. Innocent appearance, deadly function, simple operation, plausible deniability. These were the hallmarks of effective OSS sabotage weapons. Whether the exploding candles incorporated thermite cores or other incendiary materials, or whether they relied on the simpler paper ignition method, the principle remained the same. Use time, delay. Use ordinary objects. Create fires that destroy German resources while protecting the saboteur. The legacy of these devices extends beyond their immediate tactical impact. The OSS proved that sabotage did not require complex weapons or extensive training. Ordinary objects could become weapons. Ordinary people could become saboteurs. A candle, the most common of household items, could become an instrument of war. This philosophy influenced decades of special operations doctrine. Modern special forces still emphasize improvisation, still train personnel to see ordinary objects as potential weapons, still understand that the most effective sabotage often looks accidental. The OSS exploding candles, whether they contained exotic incendiary cores or simple paper wrapping, embodied this approach. The frustration for historians is the incomplete record. The OSS operated in shadows by necessity. Security required destroying evidence. Protecting methods meant limiting documentation. The price of that security is historical uncertainty. We know the devices existed. We understand the concept. We can document the theory. But the complete story, the precise specifications, the full deployment history, these remain in the shadows where the OSS preferred to operate. What survives is enough to understand the innovation, enough to appreciate the psychological warfare element, enough to recognize that American intelligence understood that the most dangerous weapons often look the most innocent. A candle burning on a desk. Hours later, a warehouse in flames. Simple, effective, untraceable. The exact details may never be known, but the principle is clear. The OSS Research and Development Branch took ordinary objects and made them extraordinary. They gave resistance fighters weapons that passed German inspections. They created time delays using predictable burn rates. They turned something as simple as lighting a candle into an act of sabotage. Whether the candles contained thermite, other incendiary materials, or relied on paper ignition, the result was the same. Fires that destroyed German resources. Saboteurs who escaped detection. Weapons hidden in plain sight. That was the genius of OSS innovation. Not always the most powerful weapons, not always the most sophisticated designs, but weapons that worked, weapons that could be used, weapons that looked innocent while being deadly. The exploding candles, documented but not detailed, classified but referenced, developed but not fully explained, represent both the success and the secrecy of OSS operations. We know enough to understand what they achieved. We lack enough to know exactly how they achieved it, and perhaps that incompleteness is fitting for an organization that operated in shadows, created weapons from ordinary objects, and understood that the most effective secrets are the ones never completely revealed.